This video is meant to explain an application called FindTelligent. This is part of a course project for CS-410 Text Information Systems at University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. So I'm going to explain you my project here. Um, First of all, what's FindTelligent? So FindTelligent is the smart substitute of browser's Control F command. It gives you the possibility of executing queries as in a search engine to find information in a large, unique HTML document. FindTelligent is composed by two parts. First of all, you will have the API, and then we'll have the Chrome extension. The API allows you to get the most relevant passages in an HTML document based on a query and a specific scoring method. And the Chrome extension allows you to submit your query and automatically call the API, execute the query, and highlight the relevant passages in the HTML in real time. So why FindTelligent? Usually, Ctrl F command is not enough when searching the web. It uses an exact match instead of a free open query. So sometimes you're struggling with a huge HTML document, such as a wiki article, a user guide, or even an ebook, for example. With FindTelligent, you can use a query instead of an exact match and get the passages that more likely contain the answer to your query. In this slide, you can see the architecture or the block diagram of the architecture. If you go to the GitHub repository page, you will find all the details of each of the blocks. But I can tell you that this is really a scalable architecture, and it allows you to implement new scoring methods. In this case, the only method implemented so far is called density distribution. You can also find the article about density distribution algorithm on the GitHub page. So what about the Chrome extension? The Chrome extension is actually a really simple front end, which is just like a blank space and a submit button where you can just write your query and get the answer highlighted in the HTML in real time. We'll see in brief during the demo. To install FindTelligent, you'll need to take into consideration two different elements. First of all, the API itself, and secondly, the Chrome extension. Both are in the GitHub repository, and I will show you in brief how to install both to at least test the software. The same thing with the Chrome extension. You will need to install it as developer mode because it's still not available on the marketplace. And I will show you in brief as well. So before going to the demo, I would like to talk a little bit about some improvements which are known next steps for this project. For example, parallel processing. You are used to get real-time answers when you use Ctrl F command. So we are aiming to do the same for FindTelligent. So we will need to implement parallel processing using things like MapReduce to make the scoring part a little bit faster. Then implement a new endpoint for the API called getByHTML. So far, only getByURL is implemented. With getByHTML, we are kind of tackling the problem where the URL is private. So sometimes you need to be behind a specific VPN to get the HTML. So with getByHTML, you are passing the whole HTML in the request body. So the API can take that HTML, parse it, and get the relevant passages. Then we need to add some exception handling on the code, which is still not available. Some logging as well to get information, warning, error messages, etc. On the Chrome extension part, we'll need to include a Find Next button. Right now, you can only see the highlighted relevant passages, but you need to scroll down to find the location of those relevant passages. So Find Next is really needed here. Then add a status on the Chrome extension just to make sure that the user knows that the query is actually being processed. Then add support for different languages besides English. And add some question type logic in the API. So for example, if you write a query about a date, the API should be smart enough to identify the type of the question and find the relevant passages based on that type of question. That's also something that I need to implement for the future. All right, so let's go to the demo. Before doing the demo, I would like to show you the GitHub page. If you go there, you'll find a really extended README where you can see all the instructions to use it, all the details around the architecture. The code is also well documented. All the functions and all the classes have their own doc string for Python and everything, so it's really easy to read. So to install it, you will need to clone this repository, put it on your local machine, and then I recommend to use virtual environments, specifically with Python 3.6.2, which was the version that I used to create this application. Once you have your virtual environment with this Python's version, you will need to install the dependencies. My recommendation is avoid to install the dependencies manually, but use the requirements.txt file that is part of this repository. Once you install the dependencies, you'll also need to install some stop words for NLTK library for Python, which is really simple, and you can find the instructions in the how to install section here. So once you clone the repository and you have your virtual environment, you will need to run Flask so you can get a web server for developer mode and start listening to some API calls. So let me show you how to do this. First of all, I'm gonna activate my virtual environment. Right now I am in my FindTelligent virtual environment. If you can see, Python is 3.6.2 on this virtual environment. After you install all the dependencies, which I already have them installed, you will need to export a couple of variables for Flask. The first one is Flask debug equals 1. And the second one is, let me look for it. The second one is export Flask app FindTelligent API.py. Right now I'm on the root of the repository, and as you can see, FindTelligent API py is just right here. So after you do that, you can just run Python -m flask run. You press enter, and you now have a developer web server, and your local machine is listening for API calls on the port 5000. So once you have your Flask listening to calls, you can proceed to install the Chrome extension. Since it is not in the marketplace yet, you'll need to go to Chrome /extensions and then enable the developer mode here. Once you enable the developer mode, you need to click here on load unpacked extensions. You click there and you go to the repository that you downloaded or cloned, and click the directory called Chrome extension and click select. Once you do that, you'll see that the icon of FindTelligent is just added here and the extension is ready to be used. All right, so let's do a demo. Flask is already listening to API calls. The Chrome extension is already installed. So let's say that I would like to go to, I don't know, Tim Berners-Lee Wikipedia. So I go there, and after the page is loaded, I can do some queries using FindTelligent. So for example, I would like to know awards received by Tim Berners-Lee. I can press enter or click submit. Then I need to wait a little bit. That's why the status bar is needed here to let the user know that the query is being processed. So as you can see here, some passages were highlighted, and as you can see, those are related to my query. For example, I can see, I don't know, like he got a Turing Award on 2016. This is the same about Turing Award. If I scroll down, that's why I need to include the find next bottom here. I don't know. Here you can see a main article list of awards and honors received by Tim Berners-Lee, and there is another passage here. Berners-Lee has received many awards and honors. Um, so this is not possible using Control Find, and you can think about many other applications for FindTelligent. For example, if you have a huge user guide and you need to find a specific information, but you don't have the exact words to find that, then you can just try a query and see which are the relevant passages that most likely contain the answer to your query. I hope you can try it yourself and leave some comments, or just do some pull requests, or leave some comments on the repository in GitHub, and let me know how the demo goes. So thank you very much.